Welcome to another episode of This Too Shall Suck podcast, where we talk about the real of grief, the whole grief, and nothing but the grief. Welcome back, my loves. I am your host, Loryn Denise, and I am so happy to have you here. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you so much for listening. I'm super thankful for you. And if you're listening again, welcome back. And thank you for continuing to join me on this journey. On today's episode, guys, we're going to be diving into COVID-19. And I know we talked about COVID-19 on the first season with licensed professional counselor Justin DeBowles and, kind of the anxieties and the griefs around it. But today I'm coming to you from a personal perspective. Yes, if you are listening to this, your girl, Loryn Denise, was tested positive for COVID-19. Yep. Yeah, it got me. When I tell you I was so pissed because I was trying to make it out of 2020 without getting COVID-19, and it got me. But I am grateful and thankful so much to God for having mild symptoms and making it past the 14-day period and making it past COVID-19 because, over here in the U.S., 300,000 people have not made it, past COVID-19. We've had over 300,000, I believe, deaths from COVID-19. And so I'm grateful to God that I made it through and my symptoms were mild, even though there were some scary days, which I'll talk about. I'm just grateful to God that I made it, past, or I made it through COVID, basically. So I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about my personal experience with it. I wanted to talk about kind of some of the grief symptoms that come with it and some tips that I did in order for me to get through, and some things that you should not say to people when they have COVID. And again, I get it that this is something new and people don't know what to say. Basically like grief. People don't know what to say when someone's grieving or when someone's going through it. So they just feel the need to say anything. And sometimes the best thing is to not say anything if you don't know what to say. So I'm going to go through all of that. So first, I want to talk to you guys about kind of the parallels of having grief, like the stages of grief and the ranges of emotions that you typically go through when you have COVID. And again, this is all my opinion. And when I get to the tips, I am not a medical doctor, so don't, take them as bond. These are just things that I did. But I did want to give you kind of some parallels between grief, like the grief stages that, I've gone through and that you typically go through with grief, and the stages that I went through with COVID, because I realized that in the midst of having COVID, I was grieving. I was grieving having it. I was grieving what's going to happen in the future, are my lungs going to be scarred? I went through that whole thing. Just not being able to go and be around family and friends safely, of course, having to be in my room for 14 days. It was a lot of emotions. And so if you think about the stages of grieving, again, it can be 5 to 7. It just depends on what article you're reading that day. But the 5 stages of grieving are denial, bargaining, anger, depression, and acceptance, right? So I will say that when I first heard that I was positive, so let me go back. So basically, I started having symptoms on a Tuesday night. So that Tuesday night, for whatever reason, I just decided to take my temperature and it said 100 degrees. And I was like, okay. So of course, you immediately start freaking out because, of course, the symptom of COVID is a fever. So I immediately start freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, don't start. So that was Tuesday night. I didn't sleep that well that Tuesday night because I was just kind of up, okay, I need to go get tested in the morning. I live with people, I need to figure out what's going on. So I got up that Wednesday morning and actually went and got tested. I got tested not only for COVID, I got a flu test as well, because my sister is a nurse and she told me to get a flu test as well. And so I got a COVID test and a flu test. They both came back negative. And so the doctor gave me an antibiotic, right? And she said, obviously there's some type of infection inside of you. That's why you have a fever. So take this antibiotic, but just, keep monitoring your symptoms, right? So I'm like, okay, great. So, tested negative, cool, right? Because I was around people who were immunosuppressant. So in my first mind, I'm like, oh my God, like I really hope I didn't have COVID and gave it to people. But again, I was negative, fine. But then literally, guys, as soon as I got home, I got so tired, like I was so fatigued, and I had body aches. Right. Like immediately, as soon as I got home from the doctor, it was crazy. And so I laid down and I was just like, and then I got chills. It was crazy. Like all of it happened like as soon as I got back from the doctor. It was wild. And so that first stage was kind of like that denial phase of like, okay, well, the test came back negative, so I don't have it. So I'm cool. Like this is just like the flu or something's going on. So I got up that night, took a shower, everything was fine. I didn't feel as terrible. My chills were gone. Like I was cool, right? And then the medicine that they were giving me, one of the side effects was diarrhea. And so like immediately my stomach started hurting. So I'm like, oh God, here's a side effect of the medicine. Not a problem. Again, my test came back negative. So I'm not thinking anything of it. Like, I don't have COVID. Like, I'm cool. Like, I'm walking around the house. Like, my roommate's kind of like, you good? Like, are you sure you don't need to get tested? I was like, no, I'm fine. It's fine. Like, it's fine. And she's just kind of like, okay, girl. Like, but we're still keeping our distance from each other. And then that was a Wednesday. That Thursday, I had an event that I was supposed to be working Friday and Saturday, but I just did not feel good. Like, I just didn't feel good. Like, I don't know how else to explain it besides I didn't feel good. My stomach, like I said, it was giving me the side effects, of having the diarrhea. And then like, I wasn't super fatigued like I was that Wednesday, but I was just kind of like, I just didn't feel good. Like that's the only way I could describe it, is I just did not feel good. And so then I was just kind of like, okay, well, I'll go and set up for this event, but if I don't feel good, I won't go on Friday. So that's that bargaining, right? That's that bargaining of like, no, like, you're fine. Like your test came back negative. Like these are just symptoms of some other infection. Like it's not a big deal. And so that was Thursday. So Thursday night, as I'm on the way to set up this event, one of my girlfriends texted me, who I had seen that Saturday, and said, hey guys, I just want to let you all know that I tested positive. So now in my mind, I'm like, oh shit. All right. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, okay, well, maybe it was a false negative. So I start going into like all of this like psychotic, like, feelings of like, okay, well, maybe it was just a false negative, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe like, whatever. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like, it's fine. Like I still don't have it. It's good. I'm still like, again, I'm at this, hotel setting up. I had my mask on. Me and the guy were 6 feet apart. So I wasn't concerned about that, but I knew I didn't feel good. I knew I had symptoms of COVID, but I'm like, no, my test came back negative. I don't have COVID, because like my biggest thing is I have been ducking and dodging COVID all 2020, y'all. When I tell y'all, I have been like super cautious. If I do go out, I have my mask on. If I feel an itch in my throat, I literally go get tested. I have gotten tested. At this point, I think I've gotten tested 12 times because like I am so paranoid, right? So I'm like, no, like you're negative, you're good. So again, that goes to that bargaining that typically happens in that staging of grief. And so I'm like, I'm fine. I'm cool. It's not a problem. And so then another one of my friends immediately texts after that and says, yeah, I got tested positive too. I'm like, okay, so that's 2 out of the 5 people who was at this dinner on Saturday. So now, of course, I start panicking. I go into like this anxious, like now I'm getting anxious. I'm like I don't know what's going on. But I'm like, okay, I have these antibiotics. The doctor told me to finish the antibiotics and then get tested. So I finished the antibiotics up on Sunday, and I go that Monday to get tested. Now that Sunday, I started developing a cough. So like on Wednesday, I had the body chills, aches, fever. Thursday, I just didn't feel good. Friday, I started getting congestion. Saturday, I had some more congestion. And then Sunday, I started developing a cough and a lot of congestion and mucus. So I'm like, all right, guys, like what's going on? But again, I'm still like trying to bargain in my mind, like your test came back negative. Why would your test come back negative if you had COVID? Like that doesn't make sense. And so by this time, another one of my friends got tested and she was negative. I was like, see, it's fine, Loryn, you're negative. So again, I finished my antibiotics Sunday. I went that Monday. I got tested. I got a rapid test, and 20 minutes later, it came back positive. And when I heard it, I didn't, like, I think because I had bargained so much in my mind that I didn't have it, I was so upset with myself that I had like tried to tell myself that I didn't have it, that I have it. But I will say that when I started feeling like symptoms. And when I found out that my friends had it, I did start acting as if I had it, even though in my mind I was bargaining that I didn't have it. So I started like taking necessary vitamins. I started quarantining in my room or away from my roommate. Like I started wearing a mask around the house if I was around the house. Like I started acting as if I had it just in case. Even though I feel like in the back of my mind, I knew I had it, but like in the forefront of my mind, I was not going to allow myself to think that. And so when she told me, I was just kind of like, okay. And she told me like now the new quarantine time is 10 days as opposed to the 14 days. And she's like, so you can quarantine until Friday since your symptoms started last week. So I was actually in line getting some medicine at CVS. And so I called my best friend and I was like, so I have COVID. And she was just like, okay, like she immediately, because she knew that I could go to like a place. And so she immediately was just kind of like, okay, like, it's fine. You have mild symptoms. We'll get through it. It's not a problem. Let me know what you need. Like, it was just, she really tried to bring me back, which I appreciate. And then I called one of my other friends and just immediately started crying. And he was just kind of like, you got mild symptoms. Like, it's fine. Like, so I do appreciate my friends trying to bring me back, because I think the biggest thing is that when you hear it, you go into like, because so many people have passed away, so many people have gotten to the hospital, like, you hear all these terrible stories, like you immediately go into a place and you try not to go to that place. But you hear it, you're like, oh, your test is positive. And you're like, oh my God, especially again, for somebody like me who has been ducking and dodging and super cautious and taking so many tests and like super paranoid to get it. Like you again, you try not to go to a place. But I think the thing like with COVID is you can hear it and some people take it as a death sentence. And that's not the case. You definitely don't need to take it as a death sentence. It's not a death sentence. Is it something that's terrible? Absolutely. But is it a death sentence? No. And is you getting a positive COVID result mean anything terrible? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And so I do appreciate my friends for realizing that I could go to that place and trying to pull me back to not go to that place. But because, like I said, I had already in the back of my mind started acting as if I had COVID, it wasn't a shock to me. And so I think I didn't necessarily go fully to that place. And so it was easier for them to bring me back. But if you do hear that you have a positive result, I do want you to know it's not a death sentence. It's not like a terrible thing. I don't want you to go to like a crazy place. You just need to start doing what you need to do immediately to take care of yourself. And so then that comes that stage of grief, which is anger, which is what happened with me, is I immediately got pissed off. I got so pissed, y'all, because here's the thing. I have been, as my friend calls it, my bubble. And he's like, the moment you step out your bubble. And I'm like, I know. But, I have been super cautious, super dodging this. So to get it, I was so pissed off because I'm like, how in the entire beep did Loryn, of all people, get it? The one who has been so cautious, who has been so paranoid, who has been so psychotic about it, like, get it. And so I immediately got angry. I immediately got so pissed off. I called one of my girlfriends and we just vented to each other, like going, like just upset because we both had it. And so like, and she lives in a bubble. She don't go nowhere, and so for her to get it and then for me to get it and then, for other people to get, like, we were immediately just angry. And so, we vented to one another and just shared our frustrations in it. And, I was able to move forward from it. But and I'll get to that with one of my tips, like allow yourself to kind of go through that. But I'll talk about that in a second. So I went into that anger stage of grief. And then, I kind of got sad and then went to that next stage, which is like depression. I kind of like, got angry and then I immediately got sad. Like I said, I called my friend crying because I was just upset. Like that was like an anger cry, but then it was like a sad cry. Like, oh my God. And like, literally I was listening to music one day in my room, I think like the day after I found out, and I just started crying, y'all, like boo hoo crying. It was crazy. And so that, I was just like sad, like, oh my God, like you have COVID, like this is crazy. this is crazy. You have COVID. And I just got so sad. And I just got really like, I just laid in the bed that day and my roommate was like checking on me, like, you good? Like, everything all right? And, people were checking and, all of that. And so when I shared with people that I had COVID, I had a lot of people showing up. My best friend brought me some soup. One of my other best friends brought me like some water and medicine. My sister brought me water. My other friend brought me, some vitamins. Like, people were really showing up in a way that really overwhelmed me. And so that kind of pulled me out of that depression and sadness phase really quick. And also I knew how important it was, which brings me to the next step of the grieving, which is the acceptance. I knew how important it was to accept that this is where you're at and let's fight it. Because what I do know about sickness is that a lot of it, I don't want to say a lot of it, let me not say that, but what I do know about sickness is that mentally, if you're not in a place to fight it, your body's not going to fight for you. And so I knew I had to be in a place where I had to mentally fight this crap. And so like that really, I kind of really went through those stages of grief with this COVID-19, hearing it just from the time that I heard it to the time I accepted it and being ready to fight. And I went through that quickly. That wasn't like a 5-day process. Like, it was like a 24-hour process. But again, I've also been and in the stages of grieving. And so like, I understand, like, I had to move through those stages in order for me to fight this virus off in the way that I needed to. So the next thing I want to talk about is things not to say to people when you find out that they have COVID-19, because there was a few things that people said to me that I was like, dude, seriously? And again, I get it. People don't know what to say. This is something new. It's the same thing. Like when someone's grieving, you just don't know what to say. But let me tell you, there's some things that you do not need to say to people. And because I have tough skin, because I am able to hold my own and to speak up for myself, then I was able to take up for myself and say, no, you don't need to say that to me, or you don't need to say that to anybody. That's not the time right now. And so what I do understand is that when you put yourself out there, you open yourself up to opinions. That is what I do know. But like I was also sharing with my friend, once you open yourself up to those opinions, that person also opens themselves up to the response to whatever opinion that they wanted to say. And so I put myself out there. I shared that I did have, COVID-19. And the reason that I did share it is because I think people at the end of the day need to understand this thing is real. It's not a hoax. I don't know why people think it's a hoax. I think, you need to wear your mask. I think you need to wash your hands. I think you need to just take care of yourself at the end of the day. And I did all those things. I was wearing my mask when I was around this person who who gave it to me. I did take my mask off and let my guard down a little bit. I will say that. But at the end of the day, like, I think people need to understand, like, this is a real thing. And you just need to take care of yourself. And so some things not to say. One thing that somebody said to me is like, oh, you're doing too much. That's why you got it. Here's the thing. Don't assume that you know how somebody got it. Okay. Because at the very core of it, I was in an intimate situation with intimate friends who I got it from. At the end of the day, the person who I got it from, she didn't necessarily know she had it. And so like, it's not her fault. I'm not like in that space of it. But at the end of the day, like, I was not out here. There's a lot of people out here in Atlanta specifically who are in the club every night, smoking hookah, drinking, doing all of that, have not had COVID or have had COVID and are just being super spreaders. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, like, don't assume that you know how somebody got it. So don't assume that I was out here being reckless, not wearing a mask, not washing my hands, not doing everything that I need to do. And that's how I got it. That's not how this virus works. This virus, honestly, we don't know how it works. Like, that's why it's always ever changing and something new every day. But like, that's just not how it works. It could be a small, intimate setting where you're being safe, where you're social distancing. You take your mask off for 2 seconds and you get it. You can be out at a wedding or a party and get it. I went to a wedding and didn't get it. And that was 50 plus people. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, you just don't know. Like, we just don't know how this virus works. And so don't you ever assume that you know how somebody got it. So don't ever say to somebody, oh, you was doing too much. That's why you got it. That is never going to be the right thing thing to say to anybody. Now, if they're out here being reckless and you know they're out here being reckless and they were like, oh, I went to the club and I got it because I was smoking weed with these strangers, that's different. You still don't need to say it to them. Let me be very clear. You still don't need to say it to that person. I don't care what they were doing or how they got it, because at the end of the day, hearing it is not a good feeling. And so you basically throwing it in somebody's face or rubbing it in their face or trying to assume that's how they got it is not the thing to do. Another thing is make jokes about them getting it. And again, I get some people, humor is their way of dealing and responding to things, but making a joke of like, oh, I would have got the COVID from you if I would have seen you, or, oh shit, you got that vid. Like, listen, that's not funny. Like, it's not a funny thing to say, because someone hearing like that they have it, again, some people take it as a death sentence. Some people cannot fight it well. Some people just don't like have family and businesses and other things that they have to deal with. So you making a joke is not the way to go. And I get, again, humor sometimes is people's way of dealing with things because they don't know how to deal with it. But if your thing is humor, you don't need to say nothing to them. If they say, hey, I have COVID, you don't need to be like, oh shit, you got the vid. That's not funny. Oh, I would have got the vid from you. That's not funny. None of that is funny to anybody who has it. I promise you that. I promise you, if you call anybody who you know who had COVID and was like, oh, would it have been good if I made a joke when you told me? Or did you feel some type of way when I made a joke? I guarantee they're going to say yes. It's not good, guys. It's not good. So I get that. If humor is your way of trying to like help that person get through or make them laugh, but in that moment, when someone tells you that's not the time, maybe later on in the process, but not at that moment. Now, if they're making jokes with you, that's different. But if they're calling you and they're like, yo, I have COVID, and you're like, oh shit, you got the vid. Please. Like, let me just tell you, that is not the proper way to do things. And then the last thing is start immediately telling them what they need to do, because that gets very overwhelming. Because, I will say that I did share with some people, like, I don't know, like, I think I may have it. And they immediately started going into overwhelm mode. And I can only tell you this because I am a person who will do that. And I have learned that, and I have learned to tailor it and to pull back. But my sister had to like be the one to share that with me. Like, you immediately overwhelm people when you find things out, like, because you want to help. And I get it. Like, I am that person who wants to help. And so I had to draw back on that. And so if somebody's like, hey, I have COVID, like, you don't immediately start telling them things to do, because at that moment, they ain't trying to hear none of that. They're just trying to like figure out where I got it from, how I got it, why I have it, all that stuff. Like, a better thing would be is to ask them like, hey, I had COVID, or I had a friend who had COVID. Like, do you want me to share some tips that help them get through COVID? That's the better way to go about it. Not necessarily like, okay, well, you need to get this, you need to start taking this, you need to do that. Like, that's overwhelming, and they just need a second to process. So those are some things not to say and not to do when people tell you that they have COVID. And then the last thing is I wanted to talk about some tips that I use to help me get through COVID. And again, not a medical doctor, did not go and get, my Dr. Wellman, not yet. I am going to go get a doctorate, but not medical doctorate. These are just some things that I did that helped me get through, so that if you do have COVID, or someone who has COVID, you can share this with them, some tips that will help them get through it as well. So the first thing is, when I found out I had it, I immediately just started taking my vitamins and not doubling up, like really. If I didn't have the vitamins, I went and bought them, or had somebody bring them to me. So your vitamins, like, you want your body to be able to fight it. So you want your immune system to be strong if it's not already strong. So I immediately started taking a multivitamin. I started taking vitamin D, vitamin C. I started taking a probiotic. I started taking a digestive enzyme. I had oregano oil. I had a lot of vitamins already, because I try and do, I try and take my vitamins every day. I'm not the greatest at it. But I did luckily already have a lot of vitamins, and my roommate had a lot of vitamins. We try and keep a lot of that stuff around here. So we try to keep a lot of that stuff around here, like a lot of the natural stuff. And she deals with a lot of natural doctors. And I have friends who, have a lot of that stuff. So we had a lot of that stuff around here. And so I definitely started, like I said, immediately taking a multivitamin, vitamin D, vitamin C. I started taking Tylenol for my fever to break my fever. And I made sure I was hydrated. So I filled up my gallon thing of water. And I actually had some Pedialyte to keep me from being hydrated. Because again, like I said, I had that diarrhea. And so you know that that dehydrates you, like vomit, diarrhea, and stuff like that. And so I use Pedialyte to help hydrate me a little more from the water as well. And then if you lose your sense of taste and smell, luckily I didn't. Something that my roommate did is she started using silver. I can never pronounce it, colloidal. And she started taking that, and that brought her sense of taste back within 3 days. So like anything that can try and help bring that back. And they say you can take over-the-counter medicine. So I had some like Mucinex fast action. So I started taking that to help get rid of it, or like Tylenol cold and flu, just anything that would help like alleviate any of those symptoms, because you want to start treating the symptoms immediately. Another thing that I did was I made sure to not look at any, like I knew it was important to protect my mental health. Like I said, to get to that acceptance phase and really protect your mental health, because you have to be in a mental space to be able to fight it. Because what I will tell you about COVID is it's crazy. And my roommate told me this, and I did not believe her because I just didn't know. But like, I get it now that I feel like with COVID, it looks for something every day in your body to try and like screw up. And so like, again, for the first day I had like body aches, chills, fevers. I was like, nah, screw all that. So, I was fighting that. And then I started having congestion. And then it was like, cool, she's trying to fight this congestion. Let me give her a cough. Oh, she's trying to fight this cough. Let me like attack her lungs so she can't breathe at night. And so for like 2 of the days, well, really like, I'll say a day and a half, I had issues with my breathing. And I was making sure that I was taking magnesium. Magnesium helps like calm you down. So I take these like calm anxiety gummies, because you do get anxious, like, because when those moments of when you can't breathe, or, when you feel like you just don't feel good. Like some people take CBD oil. I had magnesium gummies. I don't know nothing about like smoking weed, so I'm not going to say that. But, like I had to bring myself back. And so there was really like a day and a half where it was scary, where I couldn't breathe. Like I couldn't lay down. Like I literally fell asleep sitting straight up, and I was up all night. Like I didn't sleep at all because I was afraid that if I went to sleep, I wouldn't be able to breathe. So, I knew it was important for me to protect my mental. And so like, I made sure to stay away from any COVID news or from anything that may about COVID deaths or anything like that. I stayed off social media a lot, because obviously somebody's always posting something about COVID, or like seeing people out, and I just wanted to be out of my room, so I knew it was important to protect my mental. So definitely staying away from any COVID news, staying off social media as much as I could. And, I was watching like positive shows here. I was watching cartoons, like I was just watching stuff that kept me in a positive mindset, so when I knew I had to fight, I was able to, and I wasn't like, oh my God, you're going to have to go to the hospital. You're going to have to go on a respirator. Like I didn't go to that crazy place, because I was making sure I was not looking at any of that stuff at all during the time that I had it. And then also, this is also something that my roommate put me on, it's called binaural beats. And so they're like high frequency beats that appeal to your subconscious of your body and your mind. And so I played those at nighttime when I would go to sleep. So I would play binaural beats for like however I felt. So if I was having chills and body aches, I put binaural beats for chills. And then the next morning I would wake up, I wouldn't have chills. Binaural beats for congestion. I wake up, I wouldn't have congestion. Binaural beats for cough. Binaural beats for healing your lungs, for whatever the symptoms was. I was playing that at nighttime when I would go to sleep to appeal to my subconscious. And again, I don't know the scientific nature behind it. I don't know any of that. It may have just been a calming mechanism for me, which did allow my body to heal. I don't know, but it's almost like a meditation essentially. But like I said, they're higher frequency and they appeal to that subconscious of your mind and your body. And so that worked for me. And then to kind of piggyback off that, I talked to my therapist when I told her that I had it. And so she called me the next day, and she told me to really focus on meditating. I could do a walking meditation in my room. And it's where you walk back and forth, and you basically are just doing a breathing exercise and just calming yourself down when you have those scary moments. And then to make sure I get out of my bed. And she's like, get out of your bed and just sit in your desk chair. She's like, just sit in your desk chair and watch TV, or, walk around your room. I get it, you're in your room, but, just do whatever is necessary to kind of create a place of peace in your room, because COVID is in your room. And so now you want to create that sense of peace for yourself. And so also what I did when I started feeling a lot better is I cleaned up my room, because my room was crazy, y'all. I had tea everywhere and oils and honey, and it was just looking crazy. But so I got up and I cleaned my room. And the moment I cleaned my room and lit some candles and just had some peace about myself, some peace in my room, I immediately felt a peace over my body. And so if you're in a space and it's messy, when you start feeling good, get up, clean your space, walk around, sit in a chair for a couple hours. Just do what you need to do in order to kind of change the environment that you're in, even though you're in the same environment. And I think I spoke on this a little bit, is make sure you have your moment. Like I said, I had my moment of anger and festivity when I heard, and then sadness. And like I said, I just broke down and cried. And I think I needed to have that moment in order for me to move forward in the healing. Have your moment, but don't stay in that moment. And I told all my friends that, because essentially there was 4 of us who found out that we had it from that particular dinner that we went to. There was 4 out of 5 of us that got it. And, my friend who found out last, I said, listen, have your moment. That's fine. But don't stay in that moment. It's time to fight. It's time to get up. It's time to do all that. And so that's what we did, is we didn't stay in that moment. We had our moment. We cried. We got upset. We got pissed. And, we moved forward and we fought it. And, we all made it through, and we're all good now. Something that my sister, she's a nurse, and she shared with me, because I was telling her I was having those moments of not being able to breathe right. She said they do this thing called pruning. At the hospital, before they incubate people, they ask people to lay on their stomachs. And it's something about if you have fluid at the top of your lungs, if you lay on your stomach, it'll move it down to the bottom of your lungs and out of your body, or something like that. So she told me if I have any more of those moments where I didn't feel like I was able to breathe, to prune or to lay on my stomach for about an hour, and to, they say 1 to 2 hours, but it just depends. If you're sleeping and you can lay on your stomach and then obviously turn your head to the side so you can breathe, she said that helps. So if you do have those moments where it feels, crazy, or, you can try the pruning. And again, it's just and you can Google pruning mechanisms. There's certain ways that you can lay it on your stomach, and that will help you breathe. I did notice that when I did do that, I felt like my breathing was a little better. So you can definitely look into that as well. And then another thing that my therapist was saying in order to protect my mental is to, again, change your environment. So she said, make sure you're getting up and you're stretching, dance, have a dance party in your room. If you get short of breath, which I did, at one point, it's cool. But I was able to change the chemicals in my brain to create a happy space again in the environment that I was in, as opposed to just being sad or depressed or angry or staying in those stages of grief. So, focus on your breathing, doing all those things to change your mindset, and lean on your support system, really lean on your support system. I will say, like I said, I was thankful for the people who came through and dropped stuff off and, were just calling and checking on me. And then, in some days, I just didn't feel like talking. And so I wouldn't answer the phone. I would text people because I really wanted to focus on my breathing for that particular day. And so if you don't want to talk, just text people. Or if you just want to sit on the phone with somebody, say, hey, I just want to sit on the phone so I don't feel alone. Really lean on that support system, because they're going to be the ones to get you through when you're sitting in your space, for 10 to 14 days, And the last thing is honestly, guys, like if you do not feel right, if you feel like you cannot breathe on your own, it's okay to go get medical help. Again, going to the hospital does not mean a death sentence. I know that's what it looks like for people, but there's a lot of people that I've known who had COVID, who actually were in the hospital, were on ventilators and all that, and they actually are doing great. They're on the other side of COVID. And so, like, honestly, guys, if you do not feel okay, if you do not feel like you can breathe, like, go get the medical help, go to the emergency room. Like, it's totally fine. It's not a death sentence. Like, you just need some extra help, and that's okay, guys. It's totally fine, but, at the end of the day, what I will say with COVID is that it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about myself, about my body, about my support system, about my mental capacity. Like, it really taught me a lot. And I just want you to know it's not a death sentence. You can get to the other side of it. I'm grateful to God that, like I said, my symptoms were quote unquote mild, and I only had a couple scary days and I was able to get through, but I had an amazing support system. I was speaking well to my body. I was giving my body the vitamins that it needed, and the things that it needed. I was making sure my mental capacity was in a space that I could fight this virus off. And I'm just super grateful, guys. So, at the end of the day, like, it's not a death sentence. If you do have it, if you do hear it, just kind of go through those motions, but get to that, that acceptance side of it so you can fight it, and just know that you'll be fine. You will be fine. You will get through it. And, there is another side of it, and you will be okay. I promise you will be okay. I know there's so many crazy reports out there and you hear so many crazy things, but you will be just fine. I promise you that. And as you're going through the process of fighting COVID and of, getting through it, or helping someone who has COVID and is trying to get through it, as I always say, be kind to yourself, give yourself grace, because if you don't, guys, who will? And just know that you will be just fine. Trust me. If I'm sitting here talking to you on what day is this? 16, 17, I'm going to go get tested at the end of this week again. So it's negative, but, just know, guys, like, you'll be just fine. Here I am on the other side of it. My 4 friends who had it, they're on the other side of it, and we're all doing well. And, I'm just going to continue to take care of myself, continue to take care of my body, and just do everything that I need to do. So, you guys, you'll be fine. You will be totally fine. And we will all make it through this crazy coronavirus pandemic in our lives, and we'll look back 5-10 years from now and be like, wow, I made it through 2020, but I made it through COVID-19. So thank you guys so much for listening to another week's episode of This Too Shall Suck podcast, where we talk about the real of grief, the whole grief, and nothing but the grief. This episode was produced by Mike Sick, and her original music is produced by Jimmy Samaj. You can follow me on social media on Instagram at TTSSPod, and you can visit my website at thistooshallsuckpodcast.com. Also, feel free to drop me a line about any questions, or let me know if you had COVID and any tips that you had to fight it, or, if any of these tips helped when you were fighting it yourself, or if you just want to say what's up, shoot me an email at hello@thistooshallsuckpodcast.com. Wherever you are listening, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe, and share this podcast with someone you think it could help. As always, I love you guys, and I'm sending you love and light in your life because you deserve it. I'll see you on the next episode. Mwah.